Welcome back to Maker's Journey Workshop. I'm Benjamin Davies, and today we're going to make a little campfire skillet. A really fun project. So, you're going to be able to do this with some basic tooling at home. We're not going to be turning up the corners on the pan. It's just going to be a flat skillet that you can rest on some coals at the campfire, or even putting on your grill. If you haven't tried flat top cooking yet, I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do. Here's a nice way to do it. We're going to start out with, we've got a nice 9-inch diameter of 3/16 plate that I cut out on a CNC table. If you don't have a CNC table, cut it out square. I like 3/16. I probably wouldn't go much thinner because I don't want to promote too much warping. Because even though it's going to feel heavier, it's going to feel ample. If you get it too hot, it will do some warping. Of course, you never should get this thing over 350, 400 degrees probably for doing grilling. I could be wrong. And I think it's going to be great. And we're going to start out with a piece of 5/8 by 5 inch. Yep, there's our camping skillet. That's all you have to do. And you put that on the fire and we're going to jazz it up a little bit. We're going to make it fun. And isolated some material. Let me show you real quick. Yep, and so we did 5/8 at the top. And then we came down about 3.5 inches total. We've got another 5/8 at the bottom. This is going to be the part that this part here right here is going to be the part that attaches to our spatula. This is going to be the stem of our handle. This is going to be the handle of our handle. And this little piece is just going to get isolated back here. All right, let's get to it. Four! That's right, we got 4 videos left, including this one. So there's only 3 after this. It's our 30 for 30 challenge. We came up with this, just a few days before April the 3rd and said, hey, let's knock out 30 YouTubes in 30 days while running a full-time ironwork business. That'll be a great idea. I won't tell you about all the nice words my wife had to say to me. She was 100% supportive. She was awesome, but it's whooping her tail. And we're really glad that we've done it, and I'm really enjoying it, and I hope we're finished strong. Thank y'all so much for being here. If you haven't checked out the other videos, go back to April 3rd. We've made one every day. There's 1 or 2 days we missed, but we're delivering 30 in 30 days, and we're doubling up the last 2. Thank y'all so much for being here. Let's get back to our show. All right, so some of you might be thinking after those first 2 passes, hold on, he only stamped one side. What's he doing? And I don't want to sit there, and I've done this before in the past, and I hated it because if you stamp all 4 sides, that's a lot of center punching. That's a lot of time. If you're making 10 of these, add that up, okay? So I just cut 75% of the work out by not stamping the other 3 sides. And here's what I do. Here's what helps me to make sure that I'm on precise measurement every time. I'll stamp this side, and then I turn it. And I'm using that side as a reference to line my chisel up. What I make sure to do is that I don't overshoot the center punch with my first stamp. I start a little bit back of where I think the end of that line should be, and then I can grow it from there. And I line up pretty precise, and you'll see at the end of this. This is a time-consuming process. It kind of stinks. But if you can get all 4 sides lined up and get some chisel marks, then you should be able, with the last couple of heats, go through and really groove and isolate that material to where it looks like it's 4 forge welded pieces. And that's what we're going to do here. Whoa! Did my guy just break out a wire brush? Here we go. Yeah, so that's probably the first time you've seen me actually wire brush something hot in the shop. And I asked about this early on, why guys are always coming out of the fire and they've got these big block brushes and they're just wire brushing stuff to death. And what I was taught for smalls, and you'll learn as you go on how this makes sense for you, is usually working it so quick that you're beating the metal off of it anyway. So for your smaller stuff, a lot of that stuff, as it cools, as you're tapping on it, planishing on it, most of that scale pops. Whereas the guys with big block brushes, they're usually making axes, they're making hammers, and you're getting big scale buildup. And if you don't take care of that and address it as you're forging in between heats and things at the end of the heat, it's going to build up and it's going to be a bugger to clean off at the end. So for that, especially with twisting, I love to take a little wire brush and get in those little grooves. That way, if any of your chisel marks are off, it gives an opportunity, especially if you do it with like a cut brush or something. You do this hot with a cut brush, just don't get too aggressive when it's too hot, because it'll really soften the look of everything too, because it kind of blends everything. It's kind of abrasive whenever it's hot. I love getting in there in those grooves, especially the twist, because you'll get some scale build up there that's just really hard to get in the tumbler with the wire brush afterwards. So it's just going to help you along the way. All right, we're going to isolate some material and we're going to draw out just enough for a stem for a small skillet handle. All right, let's get to it. I doubt since our stem is going to be as long as the width of our anvil, which means we can't just rest it and have our handle on one side and then our piece that's going to connect to our skillet on the other side. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and round up at the offsets on our guillotine tool. And that's going to leave some meat in the middle. And then with that meat I've got left in the middle, I'm going to round up at the corners of the anvil, which means I'll come in with the diagonal and I'll kill it out and I'll try to blend it. And I'll probably use a smaller rounding hammer that I have. That way I can be in between those areas. It's a really slow process, but it gives you an idea of how it's going to work underneath a hydraulic press or a power hammer. It's that same concept. This, at a power hammer, I can knock out the entire thing that you're going to see from the start of the offsets to when we finally get it finished and cleaned up in one heat. So, but it's really cool to understand the concept and go slow here. And that way, when you get the power tools that I talk all the time, when you get the power forging tools, you're able to move that much quicker. All right, let's finish this thing up. All right, so I got a little off center. Let's take a look. Up having to beat that guy a little bit wider than I intended just to compensate and line that stem back up. And what that stem right down the middle is going to do, it's going to strengthen that up for us. And that way it's not just a weak point where we offset it at 90 degrees there. Because if that was just like a tab where we offset and it was shouldered, it would be a real weak point, and I think it would snap quickly over time. Since we forged that point right down the middle, that's going to add some strength and some structure to it. What I was wanting to do was just make this wide enough to where I could forge it back around in a circle. But having to correct, I got a little bit of wild. I've got a lot of work in this piece right now, and I've done this from the start. As a beginner, I would not scrap this piece. I'm gonna go right now, I'm gonna clean it up at the grinder. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take my time, I'm gonna put a fresh belt on, and I'm gonna clean it up at the grinder. Oh. All right, so we're all cleaned up. Yep. And that stem's still not there perfect, but these little imperfections kind of work in your favor to show that it's handmade. All right, so I've still got this bulbous on this end. There's nothing exciting going on there. Here's where we're at. Let me see if I can just look at this guy. So that right there started out as a piece of 5-inch square by 5/8. I love transforming some hot steel. Man. What we're going to do next is our last step to forming this guy up. We're just going to give it a good bend. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to heat this part up right here. I'm going to quench this guy, the tip of it, so I don't ruin the end. And I'm going to chuck it up in the vise. We're going to come in with some hammer blows. We're going to hold the handle with the tongs. And we're just going to eyeball a good offset. That's all this is right here. Take your time, and it'll go pretty easy. And hopefully what I just said will make more sense in this next clip. All right, we're gonna let that cool down. We're gonna give it a quick polish, drill a couple holes, and then we'll get it mounted together. Whilst we're waiting on that to get to cool down, I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna lay out my 9-inch round pan. Get some of that refined dust off of there. And I'm gonna cheat with my big square right here. And I'm just gonna mark 9 inches right here. Mark my 9 inches right there. Make sure I hold it nice and still. Mark one side. Bam. Mark the other side. And then I'm gonna do the same thing right here. Line up my 9. Line up my other 9. Right on the money, honey. All right, if we line that up right, circle should fit right in the middle. We'll check. Oh, we're touching on all 4 edges. Beautiful, baby. Now, I'm gonna move that. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna mark 4.5. Why 4.5, you may ask? 4.5 is half of 9. Okay, square as possible. Sometimes, even though you're using a square, I like to cheat, and I like to go ahead and draw another measurement on that side, just in case I'm not seeing it right, just so I can get lined up, just extra crispy, baby. And I want to come through and outside of my square, and that way, when I lay this guy in there, that I'm kind of following that same line. So I'm just trying to get lined up. It should go right through the middle. And your eyeball will tell you really quick if it's off. And I think we're pretty good. All right, so unfortunately, with our Hardy tool, our Infinity Hardy tool, this little bucking block that I've made is not going to work. What I could do, I could make a taller bucking block that's tapered and have that little dimple, and that way there's not as much surface area and I can access that little dimple better. The reason I'm going to have a difficult time accessing that dimple is because of this ridge that we forged right in the middle to give this handle some strength and some structural integrity. But I'm not too worried about it. The workaround I want to do is I'm just going to put it on the edge of the anvil as I set my rivets, and I'm going to take my time. We only have 2 rivets here, and I don't have any 3/16 nuts and bolts to piece this thing together. So here's my tip about the workaround for you. Take your time. That's the biggest thing. I'm going to get in there, I'm going to line up one, and I'm going to set it. I'm just going to set it. Just 1, maybe 2 hammer hits, and that's it. And then I'm going to line up the other one, I'm going to set it. Once I've got a snug fit on both sides, I can kind of wail away and get them as snug as I like. All right, let's put it together. What a cool piece. I'm tickled pink to use this. So for the finish, I'm not going to put any finish on it today. I'm going to finish it the first time I cook, and I'll probably use some beef tallow or some vegetable something. Let it heat up, rub it on there. You want to go slow whenever you're seasoning anything. If you've ever seasoned a cast iron skillet before, same process. Now that handle, yeah, it's going to get hot, but it's just a nice little stubby handle, and it looks cool. It's a nice flex next time you're at a camp out with a group of people. One of my favorite things is we've done scouts with our children over the years, and we've had a dad build like a grill that goes over a fireplace at his work. He did some welding. It was super cool. So instead of the kids going through roasting sticks like crazy little wooden ones, he'd do that, and we'd cook, 50 hot dogs at a time. And there's, other dads that show up with just cool camping gear. So it's just kind of a fun little thing to share and go camping with. Not ideal for backpacking because it's hefty, it's solid, but just a fun piece to break out on the weekends with your friends, with your family, and cook some steak and eggs on. Of course, you can always eat some broccoli, I guess. All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.